Hello and welcome back to Down the Slope. We got another point on the board, not quite the win that we got last week, but we're happy enough. And as you can see, we got the familiar face, Liam, but we're also joined by Dave. Dave, I think this is your first time on a non-transfer slash manager it.
Probably. You've taken your time getting me on, but I'm finally here to bring some
Hey,
sense to proceedings.
indeed,
Dave's,
but
Dave's our very own Dylan Venti, just sitting on the bench, just
Just
waiting to
waiting,
get the call from Monty.
waiting. Aye, wait
There
until
you
like
go.
1 minute before filming. Aye, come on, Dave.
and the good news is as well, Dave's a killer, so I know that me and Liam are both going to get shots taken at us. Maybe Venti could get on board with that. But Dave, just before we get started with the Aberdeen game, just thinking of Montgomery, every time we're getting someone on, we're kind of getting different thoughts. So between now and the end of the season, regardless of what you thought of Montgomery so far, what can he do from here that you would deem as a success? Like, is anything less than top six now failure, or is there anything he can do that you could see as success between now and the end of the season?
It's a it's a tricky one. I know that there's, if you look at Twitter and you look at the forums, there's kind of like an opinion building against them now. But I try not to pay much attention to other people's opinions, as you know. Uh, I think he has to be top six. Anything below top six will be seen as a failure, and it's hard not for that to be seen as a failure. Even setting aside all the things he's had to do and not being his team and all that kind of stuff. And you can see, for me, you can see in the last couple of games that there's definitely an improvement in the way we're playing and the style we're playing and all the rest of it. It's a bit more faster, it's a bit more direct. But I think I think the vast majority of fans will see anything outside the top six as a failure. But that's not to say I want him to go, because I thought this season was going to be a failure no matter what, to be honest, just because of what we've been through the year before with that man who should never be mentioned. And I just think we've got to give him a summer to bring in the type of players he wants to bring in and build a squad, and then see where we are in a year's time. Otherwise, we just go round and round in this circle, which is really boring, to be honest.
And you know what? Let's lead on that. One of the listener questions that we got sent in. Let's go early with a listener question. Aki sent in. Liam pointed out the other day that our squad's very imbalanced. Is that a byproduct of the fact that we've hired and sacked managers with very different styles and created a pick and mix of players that don't really fit together? What can we do to fix that? So, is what Dave said there, Liam, in your opinion, correct? Like, just stick with the manager regardless of how the rest of the season goes.
I think so. I think to Aki's question, I think it's imbalanced. And what I meant by imbalanced is not just imbalanced in terms of players and positions, it's imbalanced in terms of like levels of experience. It's imbalanced in terms of we've seemed to be operating with 3 or 4 different recruitment strategies for the last 4 years. We've had this sort of short-term recruitment strategy that's running alongside a long-term recruitment strategy. It just seems to be that everything is just so higgledy-piggledy and has been for quite a while, that the imbalance is not created by one individual, it's created by a collective of individuals. And even Brian McDermott's only really had 2 transfer windows to correct what 13, 14 players Lee Johnson brought in the summer before that, and then another host of players again in the winter window. And a lot of the guys that are, well, not so much this weekend, admittedly, but some of the guys that have been playing for us this season are going back 3 or 4 managers worth of players that are still playing. So I think the imbalance is something that the club have created by not really having a clear plan and sticking to it. And what Dave's saying is by backing Montgomery, we would have a clear plan and actually stick to it this time.
Yeah. And Dave, obviously, it's kind of difficult as we've touched on, and we've not really seen like Montgomery have very long with his own players. But do you think, given a summer, is he someone in his profile? Is it someone that gives you confidence that we could do something good if we stick with Montgomery?
Who knows, right? But I like him, right? And that's always a start. Right? I think he's relatively straightforward. He's less bullshit than who we've had in the past. Uh, I don't fall into the trap of he just plays the 4-4-2 thing. I think that's been nonsense from the very beginning, that people have just climbed on board and used that as a stick to beat him with. It was hardly ever 4-4-2 even before he's made the slight changes that he's made. And just going back to that point about transfer thing, if you go to another manager again, it is that whole thing that he could have a completely different way of playing, and then suddenly it's your 12 players again you have to replace. We can't keep doing it. They have to, the teams that get success generally stick with a manager and allow him to get some of his players in, right? Even your Jambos and all the rest of it, right? There's plenty Hearts fans that want to rid of him, and probably still plenty do, to be honest. But he's getting time to build a team up and getting there. So, it just I would like to think if he gets the style of player that we've seen even since January, the laddie Welsh looks different levels to what we're used to having there. If we can get players to that kind of quality and that kind of athleticism, then I think you'll see a different team next season, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Nice. And congrats on being the first person ever to say the word athleticism on a podcast episode before Liam has. That is definitely impressive. But yeah, moving on to the game at the weekend. I think going into it, if a draw was offered, we might have taken it ahead of the game. I know it did feel like must win, but going to Pittodrie, never an easy game. And Liam hit me with a stat. Apparently, that's our 7th 2-2 draw this season. That is absolutely mental to me. Like that's crazy, and it's a sign of a team that can't win or lose, and it's just kind of stuck in the middle ground. But just to make it a bit different, let's talk about the 2 goals Hibs scored. And just before we break them down, Billy King the North sent in, is VAR sucking the enjoyment out of the game? Both goals were hard to celebrate and enjoy over fears of being ruled out. So for both goals, I was sat watching from mainland Europe, of course. But I didn't actually celebrate either of the goals. I did for the first one. I thought just with the way the tempo slowed down, I thought he was offside. The second one, it looked initially miles offside as soon as Abita chipped it. Did it stop either of you guys celebrating in full? And do you guys just kind of wish we could get rid, or what do you take on VAR?
I'll never not celebrate because of VAR. That's just nonsense. I've never seen anybody sit in a game, for example, and go, "Well, hang on, guys, let's wait until the VAR comes through." No, you're jumping about and waiting for the disappointment. Yeah. You know, it's not that you don't just celebrate. Listen, the VAR thing's not going away, so we just have to suck it up. It probably helped us at the weekend. In fact, well, it did for our second goal, and it probably didn't, obviously, for the penalty. But you know, you just have to suck it up and get used to it. Nothing's going to change.
And Liam, talk to me about the goals. Like two really good goals in the end. A bit of individual brilliance from a couple of players that led to them. What goal did you think was the pick of the two? And talk me through
definitely the second one. Definitely the second one in terms of the interplay it was involved. It's a really good move down the left hand side. And I think we've seen, especially over the last few months, just what Jordan Abita brings to this team in an attacking sense. I think he is the one summer signing that you can absolutely pin down as a success. Even though he had some trouble with injury at the start and kind of get up to speed, the quality that he possesses with that left foot and his ability to get him down, he's tailor made to play left back or left wing back in this league. To be honest, with the ability he's got, it's a pity actually that we've not got more players on the end of his crosses. That little exchange of play with him and Yule's brilliant. Having said that, it still relies on an absolutely horrific bit of defending for Nicky Devlin, who had an all-timer at the weekend. He had an absolute fucking nuke, and they were talking about in sports scene like he had a great game. He had an absolute nuke, and he should. I mean, well, I'm not going to talk about the penalty checks. We'll talk about that, but it relies on that, and the quality and the composure from Yule just to pick Emiliano out is really good as well. So it's just a really good team going. To be honest, we've had quite a lot of moves like that over the last few weeks, but the final pass has kind of let us down on quite a few occasions. That's one occasion where actually the final pass was there, and it's just a really satisfying goal to watch when you pass it into the net like that.
Yeah.
There's also 2 or 3 in the middle of the box at that point as well, which we've not had for a long time. So, we've been shouting for years, get to the byline and get the ball in, right? There's 3 of them, potentially, that he could have played that ball to, and luckily it just went straight to his feet. But if it doesn't go to him, there's 2 other guys who could have went to. It's just, if you get people in there, and then get the ball in, then you've got half a chance. So that's been, a bit of the issue. I actually really loved the first goal. I thought the work from Melida was absolutely superb. Like he's up against a big defender, handles him easily, turns him, and then the weight of the pass into Boyle is perfect. Just sets it all up perfect for him. There were 2 really good goals, to be fair, but we just need more of it.
And obviously, Venti will probably come on to him in a bit. But with that play from Melida, that's something that we've not really seen from Venti in great doses. Do you think that's the reason that he's probably getting the nod up front instead?
100%. He's got that additional strength. I didn't even recognise that about him before he came in. Just on the highlights, I hadn't seen that level of strength in the one-on-one side against defenders. But he definitely has that, which I don't think you've seen that from Venti at all yet. Venti does most of his hard defensive work, unfortunately, in our half when he plays. But yeah, I think that's the main reason why he's not playing up top. Although I don't know if you're going to talk about Venti, but how he doesn't get on before our friend Jair is just, I find absurd. I would play him every time, every day, every game, every minute ahead of Jair. That's just madness.
Even on the left wing,
Even
on
on
the left, on the right wing.
Just
I don't want to make it about Jair because I think it's a bit harsh, but that making that substitution so early in the second half definitely hampered us.
Yeah, I don't want to turn into a Jair bashing session, but from the strengths and the reason that we bring in someone like Vente is when you need a goal, that's the player that you want to bring on the park. Like, you don't want to bring, like, Jair, as although he's had a better season, he's definitely dipped in the last 5-6 games that he's made appearances in. And I know Vente does look a bit short of confidence, but we've paid big bucks as far as Hibs are concerned for him to bring us goals. So the fact that he's not been brought on there is a bit worrying for me. I don't know if that's potential like signs of a falling out with the manager, if there's something like, you know, when Lee Johnson was putting players on the bench that weren't fit to play at the start of the season, we're getting really wound up by it. For me, from a fan's perspective, if there's a player on the bench, they should be able to be brought on. Like, that's just common sense for me. That did really wind me up at the weekend, because Vente, if anybody was through one-on-one, he'd be the player, even though he's not been great of late, he'd be the player I'd want having that opportunity. Like the one that nearly fell to Lafondra, I think that Vente, if he's in that position, I would back him to take a touch and get a shot away. But yeah, that was one of the strangest subs I think I've ever seen. And then whilst we were on it, we also got a message in from who sent it. Just Gadget Thought said, why did he take Mariah Welsh off? What does Vente have to do to get 90 minutes as a centre forward? And why does Neil Warnock look like a scarecrow? So breaking those things down, why did he take Mariah Welsh off? Was he fatiguing? I thought he had another really good game.
So did that. I'm assuming it's fatigue. And they monitor them and all the rest of it, so I'm sure that they can see that there's a downturn in his energy or whatever, and then that's it. They just make the change. We should be in a position now. And if you looked at that bench, it's still a really strong bench. I'm all for players being absolutely knackered and getting pulled off after, like, not pulled off, obviously, gents, but taken off after 70, 80 minutes. And we've got quality to come on that makes a difference, right? So that's what we've always wanted. You want players absolutely knocking their pan in, coming off after 70 minutes, and the player that comes on is just as good or even better, so you can get that full 90 minutes at your team. So, yeah, he was clearly fatiguing, because he's been exceptional in the games that he's played up to now.
And then Liam, you can we've kind of covered off Vente. We don't really understand why he's not getting started as a centre forward. But why does Neil Warnock look like a scarecrow?
Oh man, I'm not having a taking shots at a 75-year-old man's looks. I don't think that's fair.
He's a gammon.
That's it. There's a bit of ageism going on there. But all I'll say is that people that were in favour of Brexit will reap what they sow.
And then, do you want to mention the manslaughter thing? I thought that was quite a funny comment from him in the post-game interview. It's just
just absolutely fucking ludicrous. This is the thing with Neil Warnock, right? And I'm going to get on my horse a wee bit about this, but Neil Warnock has built a reputation through being a personality rather than his ability in the game. Yes, he's done a good job at some of the clubs he's been at, but he's had a fair few relegations on his CV, and his win ratio at some of the clubs he's been at is pretty atrocious. Yes, he is a bit of a personality, but he is also just a bit of a fud as well. And some of his comments after the game, even in the few games he's been managing so far, are just a bit embarrassing, really, to be honest. A 75-year-old guy who's quite out of touch.
And then moving on, we've obviously covered the Hibs goals there. So let's talk about the absolute disaster classes that were the two Aberdeen goals. So the first one, it seems to be a common thing in recent weeks where we give away a stupid foul deep in our half that results in a free kick. Then second phase of play, it ends up breaking in the box and the opposition team score. First, it was quite a big discussion in group chats. Do we think Marshall could have done better with the Miovski shot, or do you think it's a good save? Personally, it would be ideal for him to not put the ball in the middle of the box, but aware that it's Miovski, so you do want to just make yourself big. Dave, you're chuckling.
No, it's just that because obviously I think we were in the same chat. Yeah. So there was that thing about, you should be padding the ball around the post and all this kind of stuff, or out wide, and I think it's easy to say that if you're not the goalie and the ball's coming at you. I would rather just catch it, to be honest. But we can't have everything. I think that the problem with that goal is it's just another basic over the top, and Aberdeen score loads of goals like that, especially with Miovski and all the rest of it. It's all just balls over the top. Newell just kind of gets caught under it a wee bit, because initially I thought it was Fish. Then I watched it back, I think yesterday or something, and it's Newell that's kind of caught, kind of watching it go over the shoulder kind of thing, and the guy just gets in front. Once he gets that shot off, he's like, what is he, about 3-4 yards away for the keeper when he hits it on? He's not out. So you're just getting anything on it, and there's no way you can then direct that shot to safety. So it's just, your only hope there is that one of the centre backs has followed it in and cleared it, but unfortunately they didn't.
See what made that funny, Dave, is when that was being defended, like for the Marshall perspective, so someone saying he was at full stretch. So in my opinion, when you're a goalie at full stretch, you can't palm it away like that. It's just fucking the laws of physics, right? But then about 5-10 minutes later, Mackenzie runs through on goal and hits one right at him, and he fucking palmed that straight back out into the danger area. And I'm like, come on, Marshall, like we're fucking trying to defend you here, and then you just go and do that. It was not good. Like that was not good. That was like goalkeeping 101. What not to do is what he did from the Mackenzie shot later on. Just basically palmed it right back out into the danger area. But I think that's it. I mean, we're watching a guy who, let's be honest, if he was milk, he'd be a couple of weeks past the sell-by date. He'd be smelling sour and he'd be lumpy. He was once a good goalkeeper, but he has done really at this level, and we do need someone better in next season. To be honest, if we finish bottom six, actually one of the good things we might get from that is we might be able to just fling someone else in goals the last 5 games and give them a try and see whether or not they're good for the next season.
And just before we move on to the next goal, another player I was going to mention just to get your guys' thoughts. Siebel Slice, what a guy, also sent in a question saying, how big a worry is Big Nectarine, or is there no enough sample size? Bingo. So breaking it down, for the first goal, was he a bit late for the offside trap back post, or do you think that was just naturally coming out? Because he was a good few yards behind everybody else, but I just think it was naturally pushing out. I did see a few shouts on Twitter saying that he should have been faster. And then he's both seem to not really care about that. But what do you think of him so far? I think that he's had a bit of a hard start. I think 2 penalties that were a bit dubious given against him. And I think his overall play hasn't been that bad. I think on the ball, you can see at times what he can bring. But yeah, what are you guys making of him? Liam, you cringed when I said you can see what he can bring on the ball.
At parts, I think he's playing because he's quick. I think on the ball, he's okay. I don't think he's any better than Rocky in possession. Actually, maybe worse than Rocky in possession. He seems to like a diag. He's not very good at them as an issue. He looks to me like a guy who's not played a huge amount of football, senior football, and he's been kind of thrown in because we've had to experience. Look, there's a better, I'll not have to convince Dave of this argument, but there was a better centre half sitting on the bench who could have played on Saturday. I don't really see the value in persisting with a 21-year-old guy who's only going to be with us to the end of the season unless he's making the team better. And for me, he's not making the team better at the moment.
Dave?
It's early days, right? And it is the classic sample size that Liam likes to talk about, right? So he's only played, 3 games or something, right? Now, and he has, some of his play has been all right. I don't know if I would agree with the not as good as the ball as Rocky, because I can't think of many defenders that are as sketchy on the ball as Rocky is, to be honest. So he's done some decent stuff on the ball, I've noticed, and he has made mistakes. And I think that's a lot, as you say, it's maturity, and it's not even maturity in age, it's maturity in number of games, as you mentioned, right? If we're not going to keep him, then I kind of agree with you. We shouldn't be playing him in all these, especially if we end up bottom 6, right? If we end up bottom 6, and there is no point playing him for the rest of the season, we need to either, to be fair, to make sure we don't get fucking relegated, we need to be playing Paul Hanlon, so you've got a bit of maturity in the back line. That's what's worrying me most about the back line just now. If you take away a Beta, it's very young and it's very inexperienced, right? And a lot of our goals lost are down to just daft mistakes. And that's, for all people who used to say that Paul Hanlon isn't a leader, well, I tell you what, Fish had the best part of his time when he was playing next to Paul Hanlon. He was a different player to what he is right now when he's playing next to either, but next to Nectar, or if he ends up next to Rocky next week, as people are now suggesting, right? That's chaos for me. They need somebody that's actually running that back four, and I don't think they have that just now.
Fish has had his only good spell at the club when he's been playing next to Hanlon. Like, he hasn't had any good period really other than the second half of last season.
And he does get a bit of a card, doesn't he?
He was signed on the reputation of what he brought last season rather than the reality of him as a football player, I think, to be honest. He's been okay in spells this season, but he's been struggling to remember many more underwhelming loan signings the second time round. Maybe Mark McNulty, Stefan Omeonga, someone like that you brought in on loan who's not been anywhere near as good the second time they've come back. And actually, the idea of a young player like that is they should really be better in the second spell because they should have developed during the first spell. But he's been low key a very, very poor player this season. For not very poor, that's maybe a bit harsh. He's been a poor player this season for Hibs.
I think he's definitely went through spells of being really poor. Like, remember the first 6 games of the season, nearly every goal was directly because of him making a mistake or being out of position. I think he definitely had a good spell when Montgomery first came in. I think he definitely improved. But speaking
he's been an ever present in a team that's conceded 41 goals in 25 games this season. Like, so I mean, to say anything other than subpar would be kind. I think you look at across who no one's played more minutes than him. I wouldn't have thought defensively this season. I don't think there's any player across the back four, back five that have played more minutes since he's come in. So he is. I think just to be balanced, I think because he does seem to get a bit of a free ride. I think he needs to be criticised. Like,
yeah, because that second goal, as a centre back, you can't touch the ball twice, then panic and lose where the ball is. Then the other centre back come in and not take control of the situation. That's the most calamitous Hibs defender I've seen since the Livy goal when they beat us 3-0 at Easter Road. And Paul Hanlon and whoever was the other centre back were fighting over the ball. I think it was Porteous were fighting over the ball. But that second goal was just nothing short of embarrassing, was it? Would you say there's any argument to drop both centre backs, bring in Rocky and Hanlon?
I saw that on the forums. I think I saw it on .net actually. Somebody was saying, "I just get rid of both of them." I think that, and as much as I'm saying we need to bring Paul back, my concern is that he's not fit because he hasn't been playing, and he was properly ill. So he had a viral infection and lost, I think, close to a stone in weight when he was sick. So he's been really, really unwell. So I don't know how close to actually getting a proper game out of him. So if you were going to bring him in, we should have enough to beat Dundee without having to bring Paul Hanlon in, right? So I could see him bringing Rocky in, and just because of the way he's talking about Rocky all the time, as if he's come back some conquering hero from the AFCON, and he's like, "Oh, superb to get him back. It's great for the squad." Well, I think he will definitely play, and I think it'll be instead of Fish. So we will see at the weekend.
And
but I don't think he'll play Hanlon because he doesn't. He wants Hanlon out of the club. So.
And if you're watching on YouTube, please take notes of Liam and Dave's faces as I asked this question. What about bringing Stevenson at left back and putting a beater back to centre back after his performance against Rangers?
Is that an actual question from somebody on Twitter or something?
No, I just want to see your reaction to it
man.
when I asked it.
It would just speak to how beautifully imbalanced this squad is if with 5 centre backs at the club we decided to play a left back at left centre back. So that we've effectively got 6 centre backs to choose from. I mean, the wild card in this is the boy Owen Bevan, who I think was probably the most promising of all the sort of centre backs, all 2 of the centre backs who signed in January. But I believe he signed injured and is not fit and ready to play yet. He sounds
here yet. He's down there still getting recovery down.
He sounds like physically anyway. He sounds like the sort of athletic centre half that Montgomery would want. I don't know whether or not he would come straight into the team, presumably not this weekend, but at some point in the near future, because the fuck's the point in signing someone in the January transfer window if they're not available till March? Like, doesn't help us.
Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of other talking points, people sent in about I think we have to mention Paul Mackay said, "How is it not a penalty? Why are the club not calling us out from the rooftops?" So initially, if you'd seen my tweet, I deleted it since because I did realise it was a bad tweet. My point was
it was a shocker. That was an all-timer. It was really bad.
When I'd first seen it, I thought that it glanced off him. So I thought it was I didn't think it was as much impact. But then when I watched it back and saw that he literally moved his arm, I realised it was a shocker. It is just VAR's just not been Hibs' friend at all this season, has it? And if you look at the penalty away to St Mirren that they didn't have to give, the penalty at home to St Mirren that they didn't have to give, the penalty against Celtic, again soft, second penalty, debatably soft. We've conceded 8 penalties this season and only got 2. And last year, the one thing that Johnson moaned about and I actually thought he was vindicated in was how much he hated VAR because it did seem to consistently screw us. there's just no excuse in that decision for the not giving a penalty there, is there?
So I think that's the first time, you know, that referee watch, I think it's called Ref Watcher and it's on Sky, right? I think that's the first time ever that the guy has actually said, they're just very lucky there, they've got away with that one. So, and 9 times out of 10, he'll somehow stick up for the referee and say, well, this rule means that and all the rest of it, right? He just went, no, that's just lucky. That was it. That was his whole input to it. So it's clear as day to anybody watching that that's a penalty. And how it can go to VAR and not be given a penalty is just, you know, people should be getting sacked for that. I mean, that's their job. They're getting paid a day rate to sit in a shed somewhere on the M8, right, and watch it and slow it down and watch it and see the movement and still say, nah, it's not a penalty. Just sack them. They shouldn't be doing like girls under 8 football.
So bad. And I think that's part of the problem with VAR seems to be is the VAR has to have seen that and realised the referee's made a mistake, but is confused as to why the referee's not giving it in the first place because it's so fucking obvious. And then there's like the Spider-Man meme where the two of them pointing at each other, like no really ken what to do next. It's just so. I've never actually. I don't think I've ever seen something that obvious as well since VAR has been introduced. Where I'm absolutely convinced that I could have gone away and made myself a cup of tea with a 2-3 minute check on and be absolutely certain that I was coming back to watch a penalty. Could not believe. I still can't fathom to this day how that's not been given. It's just it's the most stonewall thing you'll see. I don't know how you could. The only way it could possibly be more stonewall if he'd actually used his hand to slap it down.
Caught it.
Caught it. There you go. We got it. Yeah, well,
Because
given the new fad, they probably would have palmed it away, Dave, wouldn't it? Caught it.
Because he didn't even get the ref to go over and look at it as well. Like, yeah,
he would. At the minute the ref goes to look at it, he's going to give it. That's the thing. Like a referee on the pitch with the benefit of seeing that and having been sent over the monitor, he's obviously going to give it. But it should. It's just the fucking. I don't even know.
Did we even find out who was on VAR? Because you normally get told who's working VAR that day for us and all that kind of stuff. I've not seen that.
Did I hear it was David Dickinson? I'm sure I read or heard it was David Dickinson. So
the furniture guy. Fuck's sake.
The former bargain hunt presenter, like getting him to the VAR room. I reckon he's almost definitely a Hun based on his skin colour.
And is it something on Paul's point? Is it something that you think the club should have like publicly put a statement out, being like we're trying to get answers on it, or is it just something we kind of have to accept with VAR being here?
What did Monty say anything after the game?
He was quite weak on it, to be honest. He said,
like, I think they've given up.
He was quite weak on it. He did say at the end, he said it was fine. I can't remember his exact words, but he basically he sort of went over it like without really mentioning it, and then at the very end he sort of snuck it in to say, "Oh yeah, and I think we should have been given a penalty." And it was a bit like you could have been a lot stronger than that. I just think generally as a club, like I'd probably every fan thinks about this club. I generally think we let things happen to us far too often without making a fuss about it. I always come back to it, but the Jack Ross interview after Porteous sending off at Ibrox, he wasn't strong enough there for me, and it's just that we just seem to be far too accommodating of people making mistakes and getting things wrong. And actually, I think we should probably have more of a strong stance in it. Some of the other stuff that has been covered by other people that I won't go on length and detail about, but some of the sort of fan behaviour and stuff at Easter Road that we just seem to let happen, for example, I just think far too often we're just a pushover. And I would like to see us be more vocal about these things. I'd like to see the manager be more vocal about it and the players be more vocal about it. You've got Warnock in his press conference talking about fucking manslaughter and calling us a team full of divers when the most blatant decision of the day has gone in his team's favour, and we're just allowing that to happen. Like, why are we not putting someone out to do an interview? Why not even just put a player out who we don't even give a fuck about them being suspended and just tell them what to say and just say, aye, we were cheated out of 3 points or cheated out of a penalty today. Why not?
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to JR doing the press conference tomorrow.
I'd fucking love that, man. 15-game ban.
Oh god. Because even after the Dundee Aberdeen game got cancelled, was it their general manager, I think it was? I can't remember the guy's role. He went on a massive rant afterwards talking about how incompetent it was from the SFA and how they needed to get better processes, and it was
Tony Dockery as well.
Was it?
Tony
yeah, no,
Docherty as
yeah,
well.
he had to have a go as well. Yeah. But that's what you want to see from your club. Like when you know that you've been wronged and it's like there's proof of it. And seeing the next bloody update from the BBC when they've been like, oh, we've got an independent panel to see if all the VR decisions are correct. Hibs better be on it because apparently Hibs haven't had anything go wrong against us this season.
Yeah.
Well, aye, well, there's
Well,
one.
Yeah, I think just to clarify, the remit of that independent panel was only decisions where VAR's intervened. So they made the remit so narrow that actually they were only looking at things where VAR had already intervened to see whether or not they were correct. So incidents like that wouldn't come up because they wouldn't have said that was a VAR intervention, I don't think, because although it was checked, it wasn't reviewed by the on-pitch referee. Is my understanding. I might be wrong, but it felt to me like the whole 13 decisions thing was had to be very narrow, because I can think of at least 14 decisions against Hibs this season that have been incorrect, not subjective, just incorrect.
Just get rid of it. Get rid of it completely. Right? That's the only way forward. We don't have the referees to run it properly. Right? If we don't have the personnel to put a system into place, you don't put the system in. Simple as that, right?
100%.
We don't have them. And then you watch the championship game on the Friday night. A cracking game of football. And there was, the referees errors on both sides. But compared to a game that's full of VAR and getting stopped every 5 minutes, it's just a much better spectacle. So get rid of it. And so David Dickinson can go and sit in his sunbed at the weekend rather than sitting in a wee shade on M8.
Do you know the problem? I think Scott Miller tweeted it last week. Big part of the problem is guys like Craig Napier training the next generation of referees. That guy is an absolute fraud. Like how he has got to the top of refereeing in this country, he is dreadful. Every decision, every game he's at the time he's refereed the Hibs game, he's made 2 or 3 glaring errors right in the Jago one and the St Johnstone one the season previous that happened right in front of him. He didn't call it right. Like if you've got him training the next generation, we might as well just pack it in. Just pack it in. Just get, I don't know, get some monkeys fed in Brazil to come and start refereeing the games, because they'll be better than that lot.
And just before we wrap up on the Aberdeen game, I've got a few more talking points, but just wanted to see if there was any particular strong performances that you guys wanted to shout about. I want to give another props to Martin Boyle. I think he's looked really on it the last couple of games. I think he just looks naturally better when he's out wide. Yeah, I think Martin Boyle's probably the most exciting player to watch at the club when he's on form. Like every time he got the ball at the weekend, I just thought he was going to do something. Liam is giving me a look as if to say that's very wrong. Who would you say at the moment has given us more exciting moments than Martin Boyle?
There's no one at the club that's better to watch than Elian. Then the unpredictability of Elian is makes him the best player. But the only player that maybe hold a candle to him is Marcondes in terms of excitement, because you don't really know. Marcondes is still kind of quite new and interesting, but Elian, and like he frustrates the fucking life out of everybody. But when he's on it, he's just. He's just so good. Like, isn't he's actually no played well this season, and his numbers are the best in the team.
Well, as I say, I love Mark Boyle. I think he's very exciting to watch. It's just, I think it's the sheer speed of him. Like, see, as soon as the ball got slotted through and he was just on it like a flash, it was just class. There was one point in the second half as well, I think Triantis put a ball that was a bit overhit and then Martin Boyle still managed to make. I just love Martin Boyle. I just want him to be great again, that's all. Dave, was there any particular positives from the weekend that you would take forward?
Listen, there was flashes of good stuff, right, all through the game, and that's been the same in the last, I would say, let's say 2 or 3 games. I think it's coming together. We just didn't make enough of the opportunities we had, and we probably could have done with making a few more opportunities. What was listening to this morning? Oh, the other podcast. And they were saying there was something like 27 shots or something from Aberdeen. And they were saying they couldn't remember. I couldn't remember anything near that. I can't remember them having anything close to that. It certainly felt like it was a very 50-50 game, right? And it was end-to-end at points, and then we had a chance, they had a chance. Unless they had like 5 or 6 shots every time they went up. But it didn't seem like that at all. But as far as performances, I thought Obita was good again. I think for me, Obita's probably player of the year at the moment, just for consistency. He's had a couple of dodgy games here and there, but he's generally a 7 out of 10 guy most weeks. And for me, that kind of gets you player of the year, to be honest. It's not just 6 assists and 4 goals or whatever. There has to be something that's putting in something solid week after week, and I think that's that for him. That's the main player for me this season. But I still think Mariah Welsh will be the player of the year because he's going to be just brilliant in the last 10 or 12 games.
At least he's permanent as well, eh? Because the amount of times we get a gem like that halfway through a season, then we have to let them go. So the fact we've got one of, is it a 2.5 year deal from when we signed them?
Some guy claimed it was 1.8 million we signed them for. No bad for a team that owns half of us or something.
And Liam, any positives or negatives we didn't cover from the game?
I don't think we'll talk about negatives because
we've covered them anyway.
I've probably been negative enough as so far. I'm struggling a wee bit for positives or anything in the starting 11. I think the only thing I would say is Malida's probably given us a different option that I didn't expect to have in that 9 position, and I do think Lafondra getting back on the pitch again could help us in games where it's quite tight and we just need someone to come on and give us something a bit different, come and occupy a sort of different space from the other forwards that we've got on the pitch, because Melida's more going to sort of stretch defenders. Lafondra maybe drop into that space. I don't know. I just think the options, and you touched on it earlier on, Harry, I think the bench just getting that wee bit stronger as well is going to help us the next, hopefully, next couple of months, because the games are, coming pretty steady at us between now and the end of March. So I think those are positives, sort of hopeful positives.
Hey. And then just a few more comments from our listeners. And we put out a tweet saying, give us your talking points. And Michael Moore said, bug shite. Leon Russo said, dropped points again. Malk said, amazed VAR decision went our way. I'm assuming he's referring to the Marshall punch.
Or that one, and the one that was offside by the linesman, then we were given it. So, but
I was so surprised that was given, to be honest.
Just need to draw a line,
And then what you got? Kevin Wilson said, season is all but over. Top 6 ain't happening. Only a matter of time before the manager's sacked. I think that's a bit.
Kevin's normally a pretty positive guy as well. It's quite Kevin is normally quite a positive guy, so I'm quite surprised he's obviously feeling it at the moment. I think after a defeat, it can be quite well, not a defeat, but kind of a point from a game that was kind of verging on must win. It does feel a bit difficult. But I do think Kevin's a reflection of the fan base. Like, I think there's a lot of people who don't really want to see this project, if you want to call it a project, through. There's a lot of people who would just quite happily cut ties now. And there's a lot of people who are somewhere in the middle, sort of waiting to be convinced. And then there's other people who are maybe kind of just, I suppose, in a pragmatic sense, I want to stick with it. But I do think he needs to start winning games to get the fans back on side. His record is 5 wins out of 21. That's just not good. It's just not good. Like, it doesn't take, even with the number of draws that we've got in there, part of that record, it's nowhere near enough.
Then on the flip side of that, Dave, Andrew Brown sent in, how do you see the season panning out? Are we capable of putting a run together to get anywhere near the top 6?
Yes, starting this weekend. Beat Dundee. Let's be like, if we beat Dundee and we've got Ross County twice,
and Livy as well.
Right, beat Ross County twice, beat Livy twice. If we win those 4 games, we come top 6.
Aye.
Right, and that's what I've always said to everyone that asks me. You just beat the bottom 6 teams time after time, and you'll end up in the top 4. Unfortunately, we've not fucking done that most of the season. So now, get your finger out, play your best 11, and beat those 4 teams in those 4 games, and then you're safe and you're happy, and everyone feels a lot happier. We get another Jambos game at home. And you move on and get ready for next season.
There's one flaw in Dave's plan. Can I just say plan? We don't beat bottom 6 teams. Like, we stopped doing that after we sacked Jack Ross. We don't beat bottom 6 teams. Like, we just don't. Like, we pick up team points sometimes against the teams that are around us, but we never beat teams at the bottom 6 at home, really, when we're expected to win. Like, there's just so many times this season where we just should have won. Like, two I can't keep going back to it. 2-0 up at home against Ross County. Like, you just can't afford in this league to no win those games when you're in that position. Even the game away at Killie in his first game, like the number of 2-2, you talked about number of 2-2 draws at the top of the episode, Harry. Loads of those are from winning positions where we've been 2-0 or 2-1 up as well, which is just the most frustrating part of the season, I think, for me.
And then I think one thing that we've not like harked on about, I know it was months ago now, but I said at the time, the game away to Ross County, like that felt for me like it could have been a massive momentum swing. We'd obviously been on a bit of a dry patch in terms of scoring, never mind getting points. But then just before Hearts, I was like, we could go up to County, play against a Ross County team that have since sacked their manager. They were that bad. And I just think that would have been a really good start. And then if you score 2 free goals up there, get a bit of confidence going into the derby, that could have been a very different game. But hopefully, as you say, we can beat those guys twice and we can get back in the swing of things. But just another final few comments. Keith Robertson said should be winning against Aberdeen, but we're unbeaten at Pittodrie this season. VAR both screwed and rescued us. What were the officials on? Defending issues persist. Good to see Marcondes on the score sheet. Archie Meldrum said, in midfield and attack, we look the strongest we've been in a long time. However, in defence, we are hopeless, and the January window hasn't made it any better. Would you agree that we look the strongest we've been in a long time in terms of midfield and attack? I would probably say midfield.
That is a long time.
Yeah, true.
How many years are we talking?
Aye. He just put a long time, so we're gonna have to quantify it. When was the last midfield that you would say is better than the 3 that we started at the weekend, I suppose, because that's the only one that he's able to point to.
You get started.
So Mariah, Welsh, Levitt, and Newell.
I wouldn't have started that 3, so then I don't think they're the 3 best in the squad right now. So, if you're going back from, if you include Marcondes as the third one, right? Take out Levitt, which is what I would do, right? Because you've got to fit Marcondes in there somehow. Then I think you're going back to the days of McGinn and all that. To be honest, that's a strong 3.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah.
It's really good. Aye, that's really good. Sorry, you were going to say something, Dave.
No, I'm just going to wait. It is really good. So why wouldn't I win any more fucking games? Is what you're thinking, huh?
No, I look at it and I keep looking at it and I just go, like, the 11 players, and people are disagreeing with me on Twitter. I look at the 11 players. I have 1 or 2 that I'm not a massive fan of, but like, when are you ever a massive fan of all 11 players that are starting and think, oh, they're all great? Every time you're Hibs squad, you go, well, those 8 or 9 are brilliant, but maybe that 2 or 3 I would change. I look at that team at the weekend, I didn't really see a massive amount of weakness in it, but you put on the pitch and it's not good. Like, it isn't good. We defensively are suspect. Going forward, we're still not exactly scintillating. It's not like we had loads of chances of our own away at Aberdeen. I know that's not a place where we typically create loads of chances, but I like that midfield. I agree, David. I'd take Levitt out. I'd play Marcondes, or I'd maybe on occasion play Amos in a game where we were expected to maybe have less of the ball.
Yep.
But that team that should be probably the best midfield outside Celtic and Rangers. On
no
paper.
Disagreements here. But speaking of what the manager should be doing, Neil Henderson sent in, why do most Hibs fans / football fans think they know more about coaching and managing than qualified coaches and managers?
You're talking to the wrong fucking people, Neil.
Interesting question to send into a podcast, Neil, my friend.
Know your audience, albeit some of us know more about it than others, depending on who you listen to, of course.
Manager we're talking about, by the way.
No, there's a lot of experts near where I sit. There used to be one more expert near where I sat. Thankfully, we've got rid of that expert now. But there is a lot of difference of opinion, I think, at the moment in the Hibs fan base from fan to fan. I just think it's part and parcel of the game, isn't it? Like, just everyone wants to have their say. And we're just a reflection of that. Like, we all think we've got an opinion, we want to share it. We all think we could probably do better. In reality, we couldn't.
I think there's times though, like I reckon when Lee Johnson was manager, I always said I reckon there was a good 12,000 Hibs fans that would go to the games week on week that could pick a better starting 11 than he could. And Dave, you probably agree with that. A bit of Johnson bashing opportunity for you if you want it.
I could certainly have done a lot better than Lee Johnson. I'm even just look across the city. Naismith doesn't even have a C licence yet, does he?
He's not got his 25 year swimming badge either.
Real, aye. Can't even pick up one of those white plastic bricks with the bottom of the pool, probably. So, listen, our current manager knows more about football than anyone on this podcast or anyone in any forum will ever know. Right? He's a UEFA pro, takes a shed load of fucking work to get through the UEFA pro. So I think we should just sit back and let him get on with his job.
Oh, but we're still going to moan anyway. Don't worry about that.
Still going to opinionated bastard, right?
Hey. And then obviously this week is first question: is it possible to have the biggest game of the season 6 weeks in a row? Because I feel that I've said it every single week, and it does feel like a massive game every single time Hibs are out there. I know, as Greg likes to say, every game for Hibernian Football Club is a massive football game. But it does feel like this one's massive. Playing Dundee at home, Dave, the season, it does feel like if we lose this, it might kind of pop.
I think if we lose this, then top six is looking very, very dodgy. Right? I think you could possibly draw it, and there's still a chance because again, if we beat Ross County twice and beat Livy, then you could still get up there. But you really need he does need a win, right? And I'm saying that as somebody who wants him to stay and all the rest of it. Right? He does need a win. So a decent result against Dundee, who are a good, hard-working team. Like Docherty's probably man of the year for me. Like he's got them at times playing some good stuff, and they're relatively hard to beat. And for the budget he's on, I think he's done a pretty good job. Some of it can be sometimes industrial, but that's based on who he's obviously been alongside for most of his career as well. So, yeah, I'll take a decent win and a clean sheet. Thank you very much, and I'll go home happy. It's my birthday on Saturday as well, so I'm absolutely certain we're going to win quite convincingly.
Oh no,
Here's
potential birthday disasters are on the cusp. And also I'm subbing out from mainland Europe. I'm actually going to be there for the first time in a while as well. So looking forward to an Easter road return myself. So apologies, Dave. I'm probably going to bring the
you managing to get 3 games in a weekend, Harry?
Of course, mate. Why do you think I planned it like that?
Brilliant. 3 games in a week. My man.
Hey. But yeah, Dave obviously gave a bit of a insight into Docherty. What do you make of Dundee this season, Liam? Obviously, I think I had them tipped to go straight back down because it tends to be what they do. But I think they've done pretty well.
I didn't have them tipped to go back down actually this season, and I normally would. I thought the recruitment in the summer was smart, to be honest. They signed pretty good players for this level, the ones, or at least the ones we knew about, guys like Joe Shaughnessy, Ricky Lammy. Like they looked to be quite, actually for a change, quite functioning, which is unusual for Dundee. The 2 games I've seen them against us, I've not been particularly impressed. But the results against the rest of the league have been good. The 0-0 game at Easter Road, we should have battered them. That should have been 3 or 4-0. The 2-2 game up there, I thought we were the better side for the most part, but again, we let ourselves we sort of just let them come back into it because we didn't keep the foot on the pedal against them. So the games against us, I've not been that impressed, but clearly the results against the rest of the league have been good. So the other 23 games or whatever they've played this season, they've probably been a lot better in the 2 games they've played against us. So I don't really know what to make of them, in all honesty. I think they're probably a team that feels like, to me, they'll just miss out on the top 6. And that's probably about their level based on the quality of squad that they've got.
And Dave, have they just about miss out on the top 6? I know a nice wee team in green that can fit in there.
That's what we're wanting to hear, that they just miss out, because we need them to just about miss out on top 6. I think Liam's covered off, and that's the thing. They weren't great against us, but they have done what we're supposed to do, which is beat all the other teams around them. So, and they've also got a couple of results against some of the higher up teams as well, I think, over the season. So he's doing something right.
Sweet. And then last thing ahead of the game before predictions, just building the team. If we're just going to assume that everybody that we've got in the squad is fit, what changes would you guys see come in? In terms of midfield, definitely Marcondes and for Levitt. Defensively, what change would you like to see, if any?
What would I like to see, or what will I think we'll see?
Give me both. Give me what you'd like first, and give me what you think.
If Paul Hanlon is properly fit, then I would play him. But that's up for them to check. We have no idea if that's the case or not, right? So I would play him, and I would probably play him and Fish, because I think Fish is a better player when he plays next to him. And that's really just because I don't think Rocky's very good, to be quite honest. And I'm not going to change your mind about that. You'd have to have a 5 or 6 really good games for me to start thinking he's a footballer. I don't think he is. And I think the rest of the team probably picks itself, because that's the only. I think that's the Marcondes, as you say. We go back to, and I'll use the formation just to make it easier. We'll go back to a 4-2-3-1, right? Because Marcondes has to play in a 4-2-3-1 for me. He's no good chasing shadows all around the pitch. Play him there, linking up between the striker. Aye, that'd be it for me. Same team as the weekend, apart from those couple of changes.
And Liam, any chance of Venti getting back in from the start, or just keep it?
Walcott might play it.
Walcott might, yeah.
Yeah.
That occurred to me. Like I do think I do think there's a chance, even though he didn't get on the weekend, I do think there's a chance Venti could play from the start. It just depends on what he wants from his striker. What I would suggest is I think the Dundee centre halves would probably rather play against Venti than they would against my leader, the type of player he is and the type of players they are. I think they would probably not enjoy as much playing as a guy that's going to spin in behind them. Having said that, I don't know how much space Dundee will actually leave in behind them, because if I remember rightly, when they played at Easter Road, I think they sat very deep for quite long spells of the game and actually sort of forced us to play through. So I think it really just depends on the setup and what type of game, what type of Dundee team we're going to be up against. But I would agree with Dave. I'd play Marcondes, goalie. Yeah, see what happens with the goalie. I don't think there's really any other changes there to be made other than bring Hanlon in for Triantis. Montgomery's not going to do that though. Like I think if he's going to bring in anyone, he'd bring Rocky in and play him alongside Fish. That would probably give me just about as many worries as it gives me watching the current two pairings. So I really don't mind who he plays centre back if Hanlon's not going to play. I'm just kind of agnostic about it. So yeah, I just like centre half's a problem. Like it is a problem. I think no matter who you put there, because we didn't really properly address it in January.
Or in the summer, or the January before, or the summer before, or the January, and on and on. And then just finally on the Dundee game, give me predictions. Liam, we'll come to you first. What do you think the score is going to be? Who's going to be our heroes?
We're definitely going to concede. I'm going to go 3-2. A bit of change of tack. I'm going for 2-1 a lot recently. It's no come in, so I'm going to go for 3-2. High scoring. We are no team in the league has been involved in more over 2.5 goals this season. So you want a wee bet, and the price is decent, over 2.5 goals. I think it's come in nearly 70% of our games this season, which is wild when you think about the price that's on offer. And I think over 3.5's come in 44% of our games this season. We're second top in the league for over 2.5s and top in the league for over 3.5s. Just, I know we don't really talk about betting very much on this podcast, but you want a wee price, albeit we concede more away from home. We concede more at home than we do away from home.
Right. And if there's any betting companies out there listening and you want to sponsor a podcast, there's our promo. Haha. Dave, 3-2 William with stats backing it up. What do you think the score's going to be?
A marathon bet still going. You maybe get sponsored for marathon.
What's it called?
Across our t-shirts.
What's the thing? What was the outside the box?
I was about to mention. Oh, that was class.
What, what about the thing with Dominique Malonga just went about Edinburgh in the back of a black cab? What amazing content that was, eh?
The guy that used to do that content was in the Albion bar a couple of weeks ago, actually. Just
up
weekend watching the game, eh? He was in chatting away,
Tom Zanelli, that was his name.
Tom, man.
He went to a team down. Did he not go to a non-league team or something down south?
He did something down south, definitely.
I thought he went to Spurs, not.
I think
the other guy went to Spurs. The other guy that left us last year went to Spurs.
Right.
No, I think Tom Zanelli. I think he done like outside the box equivalent, but with like the whole of non-league. That rings a bell in my head.
He did it with somebody down south, definitely. Because I remember.
Right. The other bit of content that wasn't very good was, do you remember Fontaine of Knowledge?
That was part of outside the box. That was one of the segments. It's class. I loved it.
Brilliant.
When you've got like a headline and you just go with it, no matter how shite the content is, we just go with it. That's like our episode titles most weeks, to be fair.
One thing I loved about I love tangents, sorry. One thing I loved about Fontaine of Knowledge is they had Paul Hanlon on an episode, and every time he got a question right, it was the clip of Darren McGregor being like, "That's magnificent, Paul," in training, and it was just so good. But sorry, Dave, you were about to give us a prediction.
2-0 clean sheet.
Yeah.
Ignore the betting advice of that.
So I'll try and find a happy medium. I'll get Davies clean sheet and I'll get Liam his plus 2.5. 3-0 Hibs. Let's do it. Oh, you didn't give me scorers. I'll give you Venti will get one off the bench. and then Martin Boyle will get 2 because I'm well on board the Martin Boyle hype train, guys. I'm going to keep it rolling. Nice. And then just to tune it out, just to end off the episode, instead of a game, I just wanted to give you a topical discussion that we can chat through before we wrap up. So essentially, if Hibs win this weekend, do we make top 6? And do you think Europe is a possibility, or do you think the top 6 is the best that we can do?
If we win this weekend, we will get top 6, and we will get Europe, but not through our league placing, because we are almost going to win the Scottish Cup.
Leon, talk to me. What do you think? If we win, can we build the momentum to go on and challenge for 5th?
What is it? 8 points between us and St Mirren, and we've got a game in hand,
and we've got to play them as well.
I do think it's doable. Like, I absolutely think it's doable. I suggest that if it's 10 points, have we got a game in hand on Kelly as well? If we've got a game in hand on Kelly and it's 10 points, I'd suggest that's not out the realms. I think the only thing you'd have to look at is the form book, and Kelly are still picking points up most weeks and are actually looking quite good in doing so. And we are not picking up points most weeks and not looking good in doing so. So I would suggest, see if we could just find a way to get maybe half a dozen clean sheets between now and the end of the season. I think we'd finish 4th. But I don't think we will. And therefore, I think we will. I think we'll finish 5th or 6th. I don't think we'll finish bottom 6, despite what I said earlier on. I think even just on individual quality alone, I think we'll have enough to get us to 6. And I don't think Aberdeen will pick up enough. Because I think that's the other thing, is no one's really talking about Aberdeen. They're level on points and level on goals and everything with us. If Aberdeen stitch a run together, then you'd have to say they would finish 6th. But they've not really had the sort of usual cliched new manager bounce from a guy whose literal raison d'etre is the new manager bounce. He is the embodiment of the new manager bounce. He literally gets brought into clubs to bounce. He looks quite good at doing it as well.
And yeah, no, from my point of view, I think it does kind of hinge on this. Like the Aberdeen game before it, I was like, if we win, it's game on for the season. If we lose, it's game off. If not, then it kind of delays that question again to the next week, which is here now. And if we win, it's game on. And if we don't, then it's game off. But if we draw, then it kind of hinges on the Hearts game. So hopefully we get a win and we can like actually get excited for the rest of the season. But one final one for me, if we are to push on and get between 4th to 6th, we're going to have goals coming from somewhere. So who do you think will be the main man that's bringing the goals to the team for the rest of the season?
Bringing them. Jordan Obita, probably. He'll be the one laying them on a plate.
He'll be the one behind them, aye. But anything across that front 4 was capable of scoring goals now. You know, we've got goals from loads of places on the pitch potentially, so just need to actually fucking do it. You know?
I heard someone talking, it's a tangent, someone talking after the St Johnstone Rangers game yesterday. Apparently, Nicky Clark's their top scorer this season with 4 goals, right? And like their top goal scorer the last few seasons has been like Stevie May, 5, Callum Hendry, 6, Stevie May, 4. Like if someone doesn't put together a run of goals for us, we are going to end up finishing the season with Eliu and 7, because the goals have just been so spread out. We've not had a consistent goal scorer season. I'd love it to be Dylan Venti, to be honest. Just between now and the end of the season, just find a way of stitching a run together, scoring goals, because he's got it in him to do it. He just needs to get the service.
You know who was missing from the weekend? The young lad that we got from Sunderland. He wasn't even on the bench, was he?
He picked up a knock away at Inverness, did he not?
Did he?
I think so.
I just thought he wasn't there. Like, he would have been another player to bring on instead of you know who, but you know, he wasn't there either, right? Okay.
And then Gannon coming back, that's always another bit of energy as well that you can rely on. What are you saying,
I did enjoy the suggestion that calling for long bangers would be more effective than trying.
I'm fully behind that. And I love that somebody said the 40 plus. He's clinging on to that 40 plus.
Do you know what would be? What kind of left winger Jink Collin would be? Jink would be like the Lee McCulloch type, like play off the right back, like just back in and try and win aerial balls, or Jink would be like knock it in behind type, or
I was thinking
the byline.
there's that clip of Boris Johnson playing football against some young kid or someone batters him. I think that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, he'd be like, probably with the same gear on as well.
Just steamrolling through them all, the entire team. Just this literal battering ram running through them. That would be class. I'd be there to see that. Like, I think, like, if we finish bottom six, I think that's something we should see. Just fans on the pitch, like just playing, because fuck it, it'll be entertaining.
Fans chief would be great. I think that could be your new centre back pair.
To be fair, I think that's pretty much what Livy are doing this season. So.
Well, that seems as good a tangent as any to end it on. So as we've established this episode, VAR's not very good. Point away at Aberdeen was meh, and we're definitely pumping Dundee at the weekend. Thanks, guys, as always, for tuning in, and we will catch you next time. Goodbye.
See ya.